The lights in the interrogation room were bright and cold. Commander Jake Morrison walked through the door and looked at the creature sitting across the metal table. The alien was shaking. Its reptilian scales, normally a deep green color, had turned pale and sickly. Large yellow eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal looking for escape. Jake pulled out a chair and sat down slowly. He had interrogated many prisoners before, but never one who looked this terrified. The alien was Zekthar, a warrior from the Valine Empire. His species had been fighting humans for 3 years now. The war had been brutal and costly for both sides. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez stood near the corner, setting up recording equipment. She was young but professional, her dark hair tied back in a tight bun. Next to her, Dr. Peter Grant adjusted his glasses and opened a notebook. He was a xenopsychologist, someone who studied alien minds and behaviors. His job was to understand what made different species tick. Jake cleared his throat and spoke in a calm voice. "I am Commander Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Forces. You have been granted protected status as a prisoner of war. We will not harm you if you cooperate. Do you understand?" Zekthar's head moved up and down quickly, too quickly. His breathing was rapid and shallow. Jake noticed the alien's clawed hands were gripping the edge of the table so hard that small cracks appeared in the metal. "Can you state your name and rank for the record?" Jake asked. The alien's mouth opened, showing rows of sharp teeth. When he spoke, his voice came out in broken English translated through a small device attached to his throat. "I am Zekthar, 2nd Legion, rank equivalent to your sergeant. I commanded 20 warriors." "Commanded?" Jake noted the past tense. "What happened to your unit?" Zekthar's whole body shuddered. His eyes became distant, seeing something that wasn't in the room. Dead. All dead. The humans killed them. The humans killed everyone. Amy and Peter exchanged glances. This wasn't the typical attitude of a Valine warrior. The Valine were known across the galaxy as fierce conquerors. They had taken over dozens of worlds before setting their sights on human space. Their military was disciplined and proud. Yet this one looked broken. Jake leaned forward slightly. "Tell me about your people's war with humanity. Start from the beginning." Zekthar laughed. But it wasn't a happy sound. It was bitter, and filled with something close to madness. "The beginning? Yes, the beginning was when we were still confident, when we still believed we could win." The alien took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. 3 of your years ago, the High Command identified your species. Earth. Humans. You had just developed faster than light travel. You had only a few colonies. Your technology was primitive compared to ours. The High Command said you would be easy to conquer. They said it would take maybe 6 months. Jake remained silent, letting the alien talk. This was valuable intelligence. Understanding how the enemy thought was just as important as knowing their weapons and tactics. "I was proud to be chosen for the invasion force," Zekthar continued. His voice grew quieter, more haunted. "My clutch brothers envied me. We would be the ones to claim a new world for the Empire. We would return as heroes. Our names would be remembered." The alien's claws scratched against the table surface, leaving thin marks. "We knew about human biology from our scouts. Weaker than Valine. Smaller. No natural armor or weapons. Your ships were slower. Your weapons less powerful. Everything pointed to an easy victory." "But it wasn't easy," Jake said softly. "No." Zekthar's voice cracked. "It was not easy. It was horror. Pure horror." Dr. Grant spoke up for the first time, his voice gentle. "What made it horror? Can you explain?" The alien turned to look at the doctor. His yellow eyes were wide and wet. Jake realized with surprise that the creature was crying. "You do not stop. You should stop, but you do not. It is not natural. It is not sane." Jake felt a chill run down his spine despite himself. "What do you mean?" Zekthar stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. The guards near the door tensed, hands moving to their weapons, but Jake held up a hand to stop them. The alien wasn't attacking. He was pacing, unable to sit still with his memories. In Valine culture, in all civilized species, there are rules to war, Zekthar said, his words coming faster now. When a force takes 10% casualties, they withdraw. It is logical. It is efficient. You preserve your forces to fight another day. Every species in the galaxy follows this rule. It is how war is conducted. He turned to face Jake directly. Humans do not follow this rule. Humans do not care about this rule. I watched human soldiers take 30% casualties and keep fighting. 40%, 50%. They fought until almost none were left. This is madness. This is suicide. Amy spoke up from her corner. We call it determination. I call it nightmare, Zekthar shot back. How do you fight an enemy that will not surrender, that will not retreat, that fights until death takes them? Jake kept his expression neutral, but inside he felt a strange mix of pride and sadness. Pride in his fellow humans who had fought so bravely. Sadness for the cost of that bravery. Tell me about the first battle, Jake said. The first time you fought humans. What happened? Zekthar sat back down, his energy seeming to drain away. He looked old and tired. The colony world you called New Montana, it was just farmers. Agricultural workers. We expected them to surrender immediately when they saw our ships. But they didn't, Jake stated. No. A human female, their administrator, her name was Helen Price. She sent us a message. She said no, just that word, no. Then she organized the farmers into fighting groups. They took farming equipment and hunting weapons, and they fought us. The alien's voice dropped to almost a whisper. We outnumbered them 5-1. We had military training and proper weapons, but they knew the land. They set traps. They ambushed our patrols. They fought for every building, every field, every meter of ground. Jake remained quiet, letting the story unfold. This was important. This was why they had kept Zekthar alive, instead of sending him to a standard prisoner camp. It took us 3 days to secure the colony, Zekthar continued. It should have taken 3 hours. By the end, the humans had bought enough time to evacuate all their young ones and non-fighters. The ones who stayed and fought, they knew they would die. They chose to die. For 3 days, I watched farmers fight like elite soldiers. I watched them smile as they died because their children escaped. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the recording equipment. Finally, Dr. Grant spoke. That was when you first understood that humans were different. Yes, Zekthar agreed. That was when the fear began. Commander Jake Morrison watched as Zekthar composed himself. The alien took several deep breaths, his scales slowly returning to a darker green color. Amy brought him a container of water, which the Valine accepted with a small nod. Even this simple gesture seemed to surprise him. You treat prisoners well, Zekthar observed. This also confused us during the war. You fight like demons but then show mercy. We do not understand this. Jake leaned back in his chair. Tell me more about the battles. After New Montana, what happened next? The alien drank from the container, then set it down carefully. The High Command was angry about New Montana. It took too long and cost too many warriors. They said the local commander was incompetent. They sent more ships and better troops. They were certain that professional soldiers would crush your resistance easily. But that's not what happened, Amy said from her position by the recording equipment. Zekthar made a sound that might have been a laugh. No, that is not what happened. The next target was a space station near one of your gas giants. I was there for that battle. I saw everything. Dr. Grant leaned forward with interest. Tell us about it. The alien's eyes became distant again, seeing the past. The station was called Titan Station. It was a mining facility. Our intelligence said it had maybe 50 humans on it. Mostly workers, a few security guards. We sent 300 warriors. A full battalion. It should have been overwhelming force. Jake knew about Titan Station. Every human in the military knew about Titan Station. It had become a legend. But he wanted to hear the Valine perspective. The station commander was a human named Nick Harris. Zekthar continued. He had only 40 humans who could fight. 40 against 300. Any reasonable being would surrender. Captain Harris did not surrender. The alien stood up again and began pacing. It seemed to help him tell the story. We surrounded the station, cut off all escape routes, offered them the chance to live if they gave up. Harris sent back a message. He said something I will never forget. He said, "Come and take it." "So you attacked," Jake prompted. "We attacked. We had cutting equipment to breach the hull. We had weapons that could punch through their walls. We had everything we needed. The assault began at dawn of your Earth time. We thought it would be over by lunch." Zekthar stopped pacing and gripped the back of his chair. The humans had turned the entire station into a weapon. They knew we would come, so they prepared. They used the mining equipment against us. Large drills became traps. They vented atmosphere in sections where we gathered. They collapsed tunnels on our troops. They used mining explosives like military grenades. Amy was writing notes now, documenting every detail. This kind of tactical information was valuable for understanding how humans had won the war. Every room was a battle, the alien said. Every corridor was a killing zone. The humans did not fight fair. They fought smart. They used every advantage. When we thought we had them trapped in one section, they would appear behind us from maintenance tunnels we did not know existed. "How long did the battle last?" Dr. Grant asked. 3 days. 3 entire days to clear one small station. By the time we reached the command center, we had lost over 100 warriors, dead or wounded so badly they could not fight. The humans had losses too, but they never stopped fighting. Zekthar's voice grew softer. When we finally breached the command center, we found Captain Harris and 12 of his people. They had no ammunition left. They were fighting with tools and metal bars. Harris himself had a pipe in his hands. He was covered in blood, his own and ours. He looked at us and smiled. Then he attacked. "Did you kill him?" Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. "Yes, we killed all of them in the end, but it felt like they won. Because everyone in my unit was asking the same question. If this is what 40 humans can do, what will 40,000 do? What will 40 million do?" The room fell silent for a moment. Jake could see that even Amy and Dr. Grant were affected by the story. The image of those final defenders fighting with improvised weapons, refusing to give up, was powerful. "There was a medic," Zekthar said suddenly. "A human female. Her name was Jenny Blake, I remember because it was written on her uniform." "What about her?" Jake asked gently. "She was trapped under debris. Her legs were crushed. She could not move. Any normal being would surrender or ask for help. But she had a radio. She started calling coordinates to human artillery positions outside the station. She was calling strikes on her own location. The alien's hands were shaking now. We tried to reach her to make her stop. But Captain Harris and his remaining people fought us off. They died protecting her so she could finish calling in the strikes. When the artillery hit, it killed her and took out 30 of my brothers who were trying to capture that section." Dr. Grant made notes in his book. Jake knew the doctor was analyzing everything, trying to understand the psychological impact these battles had on the Valine forces. "The worst part," Zekthar continued, "was that this became normal. Every battle was like this. Humans would turn anything into a weapon. A medical officer named Susan Moore turned her hospital ship into a trap. She lured our boarding parties inside, then released some kind of biological weapon she had been making, killed everyone on board, including herself. A pilot named Ryan Cooper crashed his fighter into one of our troop carriers. His ship was damaged and he could have ejected to safety. Instead, he aimed for our ship and rammed it at full speed. 300 of our soldiers died in an instant, because one human refused to abandon his broken aircraft." Jake felt a complex mix of emotions. These stories were heroic from a human perspective, acts of incredible bravery and sacrifice, but hearing them from the enemy's point of view, he could understand why they inspired terror. "Your species does not value self-preservation the way others do," Zekthar said, looking directly at Jake. "We have studied this. Humans will sacrifice themselves readily if it helps their group survive. This is not normal. Most intelligent species prioritize individual survival, but humans are different. You are individuals, but you think like hive insects when it comes to protecting each other." Amy spoke up. "We call it loyalty, brotherhood, love for our fellow humans." "We call it terrifying," Zekthar replied. "Because how do you fight that? How do you break an enemy that sees death not as the worst outcome, but as an acceptable price? Every battle calculation we made was wrong because we could not predict human behavior. You do not act logically. You act emotionally. And your emotions make you more dangerous, not less." Dr. Grant cleared his throat. Did the Valine try to adapt? To change tactics? Of course, Zekthar said. The High Command ordered new strategies. We tried overwhelming force. We tried surgical strikes. We tried negotiation. Nothing worked. Because humans adapt faster than we do. Every trick we used, they learned and countered. Your engineers would take our captured weapons and reverse engineer them in weeks. Your scientists developed countermeasures to our technology faster than we could develop new technology. Can you give us an example? Jake asked. The alien nodded. There was a human engineer named Gary Thompson. He captured one of our shield generators. Within 3 weeks, he had figured out how it worked and created a weapon that could disrupt it. 3 weeks? It should have taken months or years. But humans do not care about what should be possible. You just do it anyway. Zekthar sat back down looking exhausted. After 6 months of fighting, we had not conquered a single human world. We had attacked many, damaged many, killed many humans, but we held nothing. Because humans always counterattacked, always took back what we took, and they fought harder each time. Jake decided to push for more information. When did your people realize they might not win this war? The alien was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, after the Battle of New Haven, that was when we knew. That was when fear became certainty. Commander Jake Morrison called for a break. Zekthar was led out of the interrogation room by 2 guards who treated him gently, almost carefully. The alien shuffled away, looking smaller somehow than when the session began, like telling his story had drained something essential from him. Jake stood and stretched. His back was stiff from sitting so long. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez shut down the recording equipment and let out a long breath. That was intense, she said quietly. Dr. Peter Grant was reviewing his notes, his face thoughtful, fascinating from a psychological perspective. The trauma is genuine. This is not an act or a trick. That soldier is genuinely terrified of fighting humans again. Jake walked to the small window that looked out onto the hangar bay of the battleship USS Defiance. He could see mechanics working on fighters, supply crews loading cargo, normal military operations. Everything looked so routine. But the war had been anything but routine. Do you think he's telling the truth? Amy asked. About everything? I do, Jake replied. I've interrogated enough prisoners to know when someone is lying. Zekthar believes every word he said. Whether his perception matches reality perfectly is another question, but he's not deliberately deceiving us. Dr. Grant looked up from his notes. What strikes me is how the Valine fundamentally misunderstood human psychology. They assumed we would fight like they do, follow the same rules, have the same limits. When we didn't, it broke their ability to plan and strategize effectively. Jake turned away from the window. The question is, what do we do with this information? The war is basically over. The Valine have sued for peace, but this testimony reveals something important about how other species see us. We're terrifying, Amy said bluntly. That's the bottom line. We scared them into surrendering. Is that a bad thing? Dr. Grant asked. From a strategic standpoint, being feared by potential enemies could prevent future conflicts. Jake considered this. Maybe, but fear can also lead to desperate actions. If other species see us as monsters, they might band together against us, or strike first before we become too powerful. The door opened and a young ensign entered with coffee and sandwiches. The 3 of them ate in silence for a few minutes, each lost in their own thoughts. The food was simple but good. Military rations had improved a lot during the war. I want to continue the interrogation, Jake said finally, but I want to dig deeper into specific things. The psychological impact on their forces, how their command structure broke down, what they know about other species' reactions to humans. Amy nodded. I'll make sure we have enough recording storage. This is going to be important for the historical record. Dr. Grant finished his sandwich and wiped his hands. I'd like to explore the trauma aspect more. If we understand how and why the Valine developed this fear of humans, we might be able to predict how other species will react to us in future interactions. Good, Jake said. Let's give him another 30 minutes to rest, then bring him back. The time passed quickly. Jake used it to review some of the battle reports from New Haven and other engagements. Reading the human perspective and comparing it to what Zekthar had described was enlightening. The humans involved had thought they were just doing their jobs, following orders, trying to survive and win. They had no idea they were creating nightmares for the enemy. When Zekthar was brought back into the room, he looked calmer. Still nervous, but not as shaky as before. Jake wondered if the alien had been given some kind of medication or if he simply felt relieved to have told his story. "Thank you for speaking with us," Jake began. "I know this is difficult. I have some more questions if you're willing to answer them." Zekthar nodded slowly. "I will answer. I have nothing to hide anymore. I have betrayed my people by surrendering. I have no honor left to protect." "You didn't betray anyone," Jake said firmly. "You chose to survive. That's not dishonorable. That's intelligent." The alien looked at him with surprise. "Humans believe this? That survival is more important than honor?" "We believe both are important," Jake replied. "But we also believe that living to fight another day makes sense. You said earlier that Valine withdraw when they take 10% casualties. That's a survival strategy, isn't it? You preserve your forces for future battles." "That is different," Zekthar said. "That is tactical wisdom. I surrendered before any battle. I gave up without fighting." Dr. Grant leaned forward. "But you had already fought humans many times. You had battle experience. You knew what facing them meant. Using that knowledge to make a decision is also wisdom, isn't it?" The alien was quiet for a moment. "Perhaps. I had not considered it that way." Jake decided to move on. "I want to ask about something you mentioned before. You said the Valine sent warnings to other species about humans. Do you know how those species reacted?" Zekthar's expression changed. He almost smiled, though it was a bitter expression. "Yes, I know. Because I was part of the delegation that went to the Kryn Empire to discuss the situation." "Tell us about that," Amy said. "The Kryn are another major power in this region of space. They are insect-like beings, very organized, very logical. They have a large military and control many systems. The Valine High Command wanted to form an alliance with them. Perhaps together we could defeat humanity." Jake felt a chill. That could have been very bad for Earth. "What happened?" "We met with their war council. Explained the situation, showed them battle recordings, shared intelligence about human capabilities. We expected them to see humans as a threat that needed to be contained. Expected them to join us," Zekthar shook his head. "But they did not. The Kryn analyzed everything carefully. Then their high coordinator said something I will never forget. She said, 'Any species that fights like this is either insane or incredibly dangerous. Either way, we want nothing to do with them. We will maintain neutral relations with humanity and hope they leave us alone.' The Valine delegation tried to argue, pointed out that humans were still weak, still learning, still vulnerable. Strike now before they grow stronger. The Kryn refused, said that species which fight this hard when weak will be unstoppable when strong. Better to make peace with them now and hope for trade rather than war." Amy was writing this down quickly. This was important diplomatic intelligence. "Did the Valine try to form alliances with anyone else?" "Yes, the Torgathi, the Selenian Collective, the Free Worlds Coalition, every major power within 50 light years. None of them wanted to fight humans. Most of them started opening diplomatic channels with Earth instead of with us. It was humiliating." Dr. Grant asked, "Why do you think they all refused? Was it just fear?" "Fear, yes, but also calculation," Zekthar explained. "Every species we approached did the same math. Fighting humans costs too much for what you gain. Even if you win battles, the price is terrible. And humans do not stay beaten. They come back. They adapt. They learn. It is more profitable to trade with humans than to fight them." "There was also another factor," the alien continued. "Some species we had conquered in the past heard about humans, heard how we feared them, and they started to hope. Started to think that maybe they could resist us too. Maybe if humans could fight this way, others could learn from them." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Did any rebellions start because of this?" "Yes, 3 separate uprisings on worlds we controlled. None succeeded, but all were inspired by human tactics. They fought harder, longer, used guerrilla tactics and refused to surrender. We had to commit significant forces to put down these rebellions, forces we needed against humanity. So we indirectly helped other species resist Valine control," Amy said thoughtfully. "You did more than that," Zekthar said. "You changed the entire political dynamic of this region. Before humans, the Valine were expanding, conquering, growing our empire. Now we are contracting, giving up territory, making concessions. All because one young species refused to be conquered." Dr. Grant was fascinated. "From your perspective, what is the single most dangerous thing about humans? If you had to pick one trait that makes them so hard to fight." Zekthar thought about this carefully. "It is not strength. It is not technology. It is not even the willingness to die. It is something else. Something more fundamental. What? Jake asked. Humans do not know when they are beaten, the alien said slowly. Every other species has a breaking point, a moment where they realize defeat is certain and they give up. Humans do not have this. Or if they do, it is so deep, so far beyond normal limits that it might as well not exist. I saw a human soldier trapped under a collapsed building. Both arms broken, bleeding, dying. And he was still trying to crawl toward his weapon, still trying to fight. That is not normal. That is not sane. But it is effective. Because if every single human will fight until they physically cannot continue, how do you defeat them? You have to kill every single one. And humans are numerous, and they reproduce quickly, and they spread across many worlds. The math becomes impossible. The cost becomes unthinkable. The room was quiet. Jake realized that Zekthar had just explained why humanity had won the war. Not through superior technology or tactics, but through sheer, unbreakable will. It was both inspiring and sobering. Is there anything else you want to tell us? Jake asked. Anything you think we should know? Zekthar looked tired. Only this. The galaxy is watching humanity now, some with fear. The room seemed to grow colder as Zekthar mentioned New Haven. Commander Jake Morrison knew this battle well. It was taught in every military academy now. It was the turning point of the war, but he had never heard the story from someone who fought on the other side. Tell us about New Haven, Jake said quietly. Zekthar stared at the table for a long time before speaking. New Haven was supposed to be our greatest victory. We had finally captured a human colony world, a real planet, not just a station or outpost. It had cities, farms, industry. Over 2 million human civilians lived there before we invaded. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez stopped taking notes and just listened. Even Dr. Peter Grant had set down his pen. This was history unfolding in front of them. We took the planet in 1 week, the alien continued. It was a coordinated assault with our best troops. 3 full legions. That is almost 50,000 warriors. The human defense force was much smaller. They fought well, but they could not hold against such numbers. They evacuated as many civilians as they could and retreated off-world. So you won, Jake said. We thought we won. We thought humans would accept the loss and move on. This is what civilized species do. When a planet falls, you mourn the loss and defend what you still have. You do not throw good resources after bad. This is logical. This is sensible. Zekthar looked up at Jake with those yellow eyes. Humans are not logical. Humans are not sensible. 2 months after we took New Haven, your military launched Operation Redemption. The alien stood and resumed his pacing. He seemed unable to stay still when talking about this. We had fortified New Haven heavily. We had 3 legions there, well supplied and dug in. We controlled the orbital space. We had shields protecting our bases. Intelligence said humans had maybe 1 legion available to attack with. 12,000 soldiers against our 50,000. We thought they might try to harass us, but never a full assault. The math did not make sense. But they attacked anyway, Amy said. General Frank Carter commanded the operation, Zekthar said. I learned his name later after the battle. He brought everything humanity could spare. Ships, soldiers, weapons. He attacked with numbers that were still inferior to ours. But he attacked with something we did not have. He attacked with rage. Dr. Grant raised an eyebrow. Rage? Yes, rage, fury, anger at us for taking their world. Every human soldier in that battle fought like we had killed their family personally. Maybe we had. War does that. But the intensity of their assault was unlike anything we had seen. Zekthar moved to the wall and leaned against it, as if he needed support to continue. The attack began at night. Drop pods fell from orbit like meteors. Hundreds of them. Each one carried human Marines in armor. They landed behind our lines in our secured zones in the middle of our bases. Chaos everywhere. While the drop pods fell, human ships engaged our fleet. They were outnumbered, but they fought with such aggression. They would sacrifice 1 ship to take out 2 of ours. Their captains flew like madmen, taking risks that made our commanders freeze in disbelief. Jake knew some of this from reports, but hearing it from an enemy soldier gave it new weight. What was your assignment during the battle? I was stationed at Forward Base 7, Zekthar replied. It was on the coast defending the spaceport. My unit was told to hold that position at all costs. We had good defenses. Walls, guns, shields. 2,000 warriors in the base. We felt confident. The humans sent 300 Marines to take our base. The alien laughed that bitter laugh again. 300 against 2,000. Suicide mission, we thought. We would kill them easily. We were wrong. Amy could not help herself. How did 300 beat 2,000? They did not fight fair. They came at night during a storm. Used the weather to hide their approach. Dropped into the ocean and swam to shore. Hit us from the waterside where our defenses were weakest. Used explosives to breach the walls. Threw smoke and gas to blind our sensors. Zekthar's voice grew intense. But what broke us was not their tactics. It was their intensity. Every human fought like they were worth 10 of us. They moved fast, shot accurately, never hesitated. When we wounded one, they just kept fighting. I saw a human take 3 shots to the chest and still throw a grenade before falling. The armor helped, yes, but it was more than that. It was will. It was determination. There was a lieutenant named Kevin Brooks, the alien said. He led a squad that infiltrated our command center, killed the base commander and destroyed our communications. We could not coordinate our defense. Units were fighting blind, not knowing where enemies were or what to do. The battle lasted 14 hours. By dawn, the base was in human hands. Of the 300 Marines who attacked, maybe 100 survived. But they took a position held by 2,000. They did what should have been impossible. Dr. Grant was writing furiously now. What was going through your mind during this? Terror, pure terror. I kept thinking, if 300 can do this, what can 3,000 do? What can 30,000 do? The math was wrong. Everything we knew about warfare was wrong when it came to humans. Zekthar pushed off from the wall and walked back to the table. He sat down heavily. The entire planet was like this. Every base we held came under attack. Humans used combined tactics we had never seen. Marines on the ground, ships in orbit, special forces behind our lines. Everything coordinated perfectly. They fought for 1 week straight to retake New Haven. We lost 13,000 warriors dead, another 20,000 wounded. The humans took heavy casualties too, but they won. They took back their planet. And the entire Valine military watched in horror. Jake leaned forward. What did the High Command do after that? They panicked. Quietly, but they panicked. Orders came down to avoid direct engagement with human forces when possible. To use bombardment from orbit instead of ground assault. To retreat if outnumbered instead of standing and fighting. We became the ones who were afraid. The alien's voice dropped to a whisper. I was wounded during the battle. Took shrapnel from a grenade. While I was being treated, I saw something that I will never forget. A human soldier was in the medical area. She had been captured and was also being treated. Her name was Julie Mason. She was badly hurt. Lost a lot of blood. But she was conscious and watching everything. A medic asked her why humans fought so hard. Why not just make peace and end the killing? She looked at the medic and said something simple. She said, because it is our home. Zekthar shook his head slowly. That was all. Because it is our home. 4 words that explained everything. Humans do not fight for territory or resources or empire. You fight for home. For family. For each other. And that makes you willing to die. Makes you willing to do anything. After New Haven, the mood in the Valine military changed. Warriors started refusing missions against humans. Some deserted. Others developed what your doctors call trauma. They could not sleep. Could not eat. Had nightmares. The horror of fighting an enemy that will not break, cannot be intimidated, refuses to acknowledge when they are beaten. Dr. Grant looked thoughtful. So the Valine military was becoming less effective. Yes. We were winning battles but losing the war. Because every victory cost too much. Every planet we took, humans would take back. Every ship we destroyed, they built 2 more. Every tactic we used, they countered. And always, they fought harder than we did. Amy asked a question that was on everyone's mind. Why did you defect? Why did you surrender to us? Zekthar looked at her with those haunted yellow eyes. Because I realized something terrible. The Valine Empire has conquered 47 species. We have won hundreds of wars. We are proud warriors with thousands of years of military tradition, but none of that matters against humans. Because humans do not care about tradition or honor or the rules of civilized warfare. You care about winning, about surviving, about protecting each other, and that makes you unstoppable. I surrendered because I wanted to live, the alien said simply. Because facing humans again would mean death. Maybe not immediately, maybe not in the next battle, but eventually, because humans do not give up. Ever. And I cannot fight an enemy like that anymore. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the recording equipment. Finally, Jake spoke. Is there anything else you want to tell us? Zekthar nodded slowly. Yes, one more thing. After New Haven, the High Command sent a message to all other species in the local sector. A warning. It said, do not fight the humans. Do not provoke them. Do not threaten them, because if you do, they will come for you. And when humans come for you, they do not stop until you are broken or they are dead. Usually both. Your species is young. New to the galaxy, but you are already the most feared warriors in known space. Not the strongest. Not the most advanced. But the most feared. Because fear is not about power. Fear is about unpredictability. About facing an enemy that does not think like you do. That does not value what you value. That will do things you would never consider. The alien stood one final time. I am done talking now. I have told you what I know. I have confessed my fear. All I ask is that you keep me safe. Do not send me back to the Valine. Do not make me fight humans again. I would rather die here in this room than face your soldiers on a battlefield one more time. The interrogation had been going on for hours. Commander Jake Morrison could feel the weight of it settling into his bones. Everything Zekthar had told them painted a picture of humanity that was both flattering and disturbing. They were heroes and monsters at the same time, depending on which side you stood on. Dr. Peter Grant had been quiet for the last few minutes, clearly thinking deeply about something. Finally, he spoke up. Zekthar, I want to ask about something specific. You mentioned that human biology confused the Valine. Can you elaborate on that? The alien shifted in his seat. He seemed almost grateful for a question that was more technical, less emotional. Yes. When we first studied humans, we thought we understood your species. Primate descendants. Tool users. Social creatures. Nothing remarkable compared to other spacefaring species. But when we actually fought you, we discovered things our biologists had not predicted. Things that gave you advantages in combat. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez leaned forward with interest. Like what? Pain tolerance, for one thing, Zekthar explained. Humans can function through injuries that would incapacitate most species. We studied captured humans and learned your bodies produce chemicals when injured. Adrenaline, endorphins, these allow you to keep fighting even with severe wounds. We also learned humans have greater endurance than most species. You evolved as persistence hunters on your world. You can run for hours, keep fighting for days. Your bodies are built for sustained effort in ways ours are not. Jake had never thought about these things as advantages. They were just normal human traits. But hearing them described by an alien gave him a new perspective. Dr. Grant was taking notes rapidly. What else? Your brains, Zekthar said. Human brains are unusual. You can process stress and fear in ways that let you keep functioning. You can make complex decisions quickly under pressure. And you have something we call creative violence. Creative violence? Amy asked. Yes, most species fight in predictable ways. We have tactics that work, and we use them repeatedly. Humans improvise. Every human soldier seems capable of inventing new tactics on the spot, using whatever is available as a weapon, adapting to changing situations instantly. It makes you impossible to predict. There was a battle where a human medic ran out of medical supplies, so he used industrial glue to seal wounds. It should not have worked, but it did. He saved 3 soldiers who would have died. That is creative violence, using anything, even incorrectly, if it helps you survive and win. Jake remembered reading reports like that. Field medics who performed miracles with whatever they had on hand. Soldiers who turned broken equipment into functioning weapons. Engineers who built defenses from scrap metal and determination. But the most important biological factor is something else, Zekthar said, his voice dropping lower. Something our scientists discovered late in the war. Earth is what we call a death world. Dr. Grant looked up sharply. Death world? What does that mean? It means Earth is unusually dangerous compared to most planets that produce intelligent life. High gravity, extreme weather, dangerous predators, toxic plants, natural disasters, disease. Your world tried to kill your ancestors constantly for millions of years. The aliens' yellow eyes were intense now. Most species evolved on gentler worlds. Stable climates, fewer predators, less disease. They developed intelligence in safer environments. But humans developed intelligence specifically to survive a world that wanted them dead. This shaped your entire species, made you paranoid and careful, made you plan for worst-case scenarios, made you fighters by nature. Every human carries the genetic memory of 10,000 generations of struggle just to survive. Amy's pen had stopped moving. She was just listening now, fascinated. When we realized this, many Valine warriors lost hope, Zekthar continued, because it meant we were not just fighting human soldiers. We were fighting the product of millions of years of natural selection for survival traits. You are not warriors by choice. You are warriors by evolution. Jake felt a strange chill run down his spine. He had never thought of humanity this way, but it made a terrible kind of sense. Did your scientists study other death worlds? Dr. Grant asked. Are there other species like humans? We found 3 other known species from death worlds, Zekthar said. All 3 are considered extremely dangerous. None are as dangerous as humans. Because you combine death world survival instincts with high intelligence and social cooperation, that combination is rare and terrifying. There is more, the alien added. Humans do not just survive on death worlds. You thrive on them. You spread across Earth's most hostile environments, deserts, frozen wastes, dense jungles, mountains, even your oceans. Most species stay in one comfortable zone. Humans conquer every zone. This means when you spread to other planets, you do not just settle the easy ones. You want the difficult ones too. You want challenges. You want to prove you can survive anywhere. This makes you impossible to contain. Any planet humans can physically reach, they will try to colonize. Jake stood and walked to the window again. Outside, he could see Earth in the distance, a blue and white marble hanging in space. Beautiful and deadly, home to billions of stubborn survivors who refuse to quit. Let me ask you something, Jake said, turning back to face Zekthar. If the Valine had known all this before invading human space, would they have attacked at all? The alien did not hesitate. No. If the High Command had understood what humans truly were, they would have established peaceful trade relations immediately. The war was a mistake born of ignorance. We thought you were weak newcomers. We learned too late that you were something else entirely. Amy asked a question that had been bothering her. Why did it take so long for the Valine to surrender? If you realized humans were this dangerous, why keep fighting for 3 years? Pride, Zekthar said simply. The Valine Empire has never lost a war, never surrendered to anyone. The High Command could not accept defeat, so they kept trying new strategies, kept sending more warriors, kept hoping that eventually human resolve would break. But it never did, and slowly the truth became undeniable. We could not win. The best we could hope for was endless stalemate, bleeding resources and lives forever. Or we could surrender with honor and hope humans would be merciful in victory. Dr. Grant asked another question. What do most Valine citizens think about humans now? After the war? They are divided, Zekthar replied. Some are angry and want revenge. They see the surrender as betrayal, but most are relieved the war is over, and many are curious about humanity. Want to understand you better, want to trade and interact peacefully. There is even a movement among young Valine to study human culture, to learn from you. They see humans as proof that strength does not only come from tradition and old ways, that adaptation and flexibility can be powerful. This disturbs the elders, but the youth do not care. Jake found this interesting. The war had not just changed human society. It had changed the Valine too, maybe even changed the entire political landscape of this region of space. I want to ask about one specific thing you mentioned earlier, Dr. Grant said. You said humans fight like they have nothing to lose. Can you explain what you mean by that? Zekthar thought carefully before answering. When most species fight, they fight to win, but also to survive. Self-preservation is always a factor in tactics and decisions, but humans seem to shut off that instinct when battle begins. You fight as if survival does not matter, as if the mission is everything and your personal fate is irrelevant. This gives you an enormous psychological advantage, because an enemy who knows you will trade your life to accomplish your goal becomes cautious, hesitant. They know that stopping you means killing you, and killing you costs them casualties they might not want to pay. I saw this in every battle. Human soldiers would charge machine gun positions, would hold hopeless defensive points, would volunteer for suicide missions without hesitation, not because they wanted to die, but because they had accepted death as a possibility and moved past fear of it. The alien's voice became softer. The Valine fear death. All thinking beings fear death. But humans fear failure more than death, fear letting down their comrades more than dying. This makes you almost impossible to intimidate or break. Amy spoke up quietly. We call it duty, honor, loyalty. It's not that we don't fear death. We just believe some things are worth dying for. Yes, Zekthar agreed. And that belief makes you the most dangerous warriors in the known galaxy. Because you do not fight just for victory, you fight for each other. For concepts like honor and duty, these things cannot be taken from you by force, cannot be destroyed by weapons, cannot be defeated by superior numbers. Jake sat back down at the table. Is there anything else you think we should know? Any other insights into why the Valine feared humans so much? Zekthar was quiet for a long moment. His scales had darkened again, a sign of stress or emotion. There is one more thing, something I have not told anyone because it shames me, but I will tell you now. Go ahead, Jake said gently. After New Haven, after that terrible defeat, I had nightmares. Every night I would dream of human soldiers. They would be coming for me, unstoppable and relentless. In the dreams I would run, but they would always catch me. I would fight, but they would not fall. I would plead, but... The interrogation was winding down. Commander Jake Morrison could see that Zekthar was exhausted, both physically and emotionally. The alien had poured out his fears and trauma for hours. It was time to wrap things up. But Jake had one more important question. Zekthar, what do you think will happen now? Between humans and the Valine? Between humans and the rest of the galaxy? The alien looked at him with those tired yellow eyes. I think humans will do what humans always do. You will surprise everyone. The question is whether it will be a good surprise or a bad one. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez spoke up. What would be a good surprise? If humans choose to be partners instead of conquerors, Zekthar said. If you use your strength to protect rather than dominate. The galaxy needs that. There are aggressive species out there, beyond this region of space, species that make the Valine look peaceful. If humans stand against them, many worlds will be grateful. And a bad surprise? Dr. Peter Grant asked. If humans decide that because you can conquer, you should conquer. If you take the Valine path and build an empire through force, that would be tragic. But I do not think you will do this. Jake raised an eyebrow. Why not? Because humans value something the Valine never did. You value freedom, individual freedom, the right of beings to choose their own path. I saw this in how you fought. You were not fighting to conquer us. You were fighting to stop us from conquering you. There is a difference. Zekthar shifted in his chair, trying to get comfortable. The Valine fought to expand our empire, to add more worlds to our territory, to increase our power and prestige. But humans fought for survival, for the right to exist freely. Those are not the same motivations. When I listened to captured human soldiers talk, they did not speak of glory or conquest. They spoke of protecting their families, their homes, their way of life. This is defensive thinking, not aggressive thinking. Amy found this observation interesting. So you think humanity will be defensive rather than expansionist? I think humans will expand, yes, the alien said. But you will expand to settle and explore, not to conquer and rule. You will want to meet new species, trade with them, learn from them, not subjugate them. At least that is my hope. Jake stood and stretched. His legs had gone numb from sitting so long. I want to thank you for your honesty today. Everything you've told us is valuable, not just for military intelligence, but for understanding how we're perceived by other species. What will happen to me now? Zekthar asked quietly. Will I be imprisoned? Executed? Neither, Jake said firmly. You'll be given asylum as requested. You'll be housed in a facility where you'll be safe and comfortable. We may ask you more questions in the future, but you won't be mistreated. You have my word on that. The alien's relief was visible. His scales lightened slightly and his posture relaxed. Thank you. I did not expect mercy from humans. The propaganda said you were cruel to prisoners. Propaganda is usually wrong, Amy said with a slight smile. About everyone. Dr. Grant closed his notebook and stood. I'd like to continue speaking with you over the coming weeks if you're willing. Not interrogation, but conversation, to better understand Valine culture and psychology. Would that be acceptable? Zekthar nodded. Yes, I would like that. It would give me something to do. Something to think about besides the nightmares. Jake signaled to the guards outside. They entered and gently escorted Zekthar out of the room. The alien went without resistance, looking almost peaceful now that his story had been told. When the door closed, the three humans stood in silence for a moment. Then Amy let out a long breath. Well, that was intense. That was historic, Dr. Grant corrected. That testimony will be studied for generations. It's a unique perspective on humanity from an outside observer who fought against us. Jake walked to the window one more time and looked out at Earth. The planet seemed so peaceful from space. It was hard to imagine it as the death world Zekthar described, but maybe that was the point. Earth's dangers had forged humanity into something resilient and tough without them even realizing it. What do you think? Amy asked. About everything he said. Is he right about us? Jake considered the question carefully. I think he's partially right. We do fight harder than most species expect. We do refuse to give up, but I don't think we're monsters. We're just survivors who got pushed into a corner and fought our way out. The death world theory is interesting, Dr. Grant said. It would explain a lot about human behavior. Our risk-taking, our adaptability, our stubborn refusal to accept limitations. If we evolved to survive on a hostile planet, those traits make sense. But it also makes us sound like we're dangerous by nature, Amy pointed out. Like we can't help but be aggressive. I don't think that's true, Jake replied. Yes, humans can be aggressive when threatened. But we're also capable of great compassion, great creativity, great cooperation. The same traits that make us fierce warriors also make us loyal friends and innovative thinkers. Dr. Grant nodded in agreement. The key is what Zekthar said about motivation. The Valine fought for conquest. Humans fought for survival and freedom. That difference matters. It suggests we won't become the next galactic empire trying to dominate everyone. I hope you're right, Amy said quietly, because if other species fear us, that could lead to problems down the road. Fear makes people do stupid things. Jake turned away from the window and faced his colleagues. That's why this testimony is so important. We need to understand how we're perceived. Need to be aware of our own reputation. If the galaxy sees us as terrifying warriors, we need to work extra hard to also show them we can be good neighbors. Speak softly and carry a big stick, Dr. Grant quoted. Exactly. We've proven we can fight. Now we need to prove we can also make peace, build relationships, trade fairly, help other species when they need it. Show that human strength can be used for good, not just for war. Amy began packing up the recording equipment. Do you think the peace with the Valine will hold? I do, Jake said. They're genuinely afraid of us now. The fear will keep them honest. And if we treat them fairly in the peace negotiations, show them that we're not vindictive or cruel, they might actually become allies eventually. That would be something, Dr. Grant said, turning an enemy into a friend. It's very human, actually. We've done it throughout our history. Countries that were enemies one generation become partners the next. Jake's communicator buzzed. He checked it and saw a message from Admiral Patterson. I need to report to the bridge. The Admiral wants a briefing on the interrogation. I'll compile the recordings and prepare a report, Amy said, and I'll start my analysis. Dr. Grant added, This is going to make a fascinating paper. Maybe even a book, Jake smiled. Just don't make us sound too scary in your book, Doc. We want to make friends out here, not terrify everyone. I'll do my best, the doctor promised. As Jake left the interrogation room and walked through the corridors of the USS Defiance, he thought about everything Zekthar had said. The alien's words had given him a new perspective on humanity. They were tough, yes. Stubborn, absolutely. Dangerous when threatened, certainly. But they were also more than that. They were problem solvers and innovators. They were loyal to each other and willing to sacrifice for the greater good. They were adaptable and creative. And, most importantly, they fought not for conquest but for the right to exist freely. Jake reached the bridge and was waved through by the guard. Admiral Patterson was standing by the main view screen looking at a star map. She turned when Jake entered. Commander Morrison, I hear the interrogation went well. Very well, ma'am. The prisoner was extremely cooperative. Provided detailed information about Valine military psychology and their reasons for surrendering. Good. I'm getting reports that the Valine Parliament has ratified the peace treaty. The war is officially over. The Admiral's expression softened slightly. We won, Jake. Against all odds, we won. Yes, ma'am. But according to our prisoner, we didn't just win a war. We changed how the entire galaxy sees us. Patterson nodded slowly. I've read the preliminary reports. Death World Theory. Apex Warriors. Terrifying reputation. It's a lot to process. It is, Jake agreed. But I think we can handle it. We just need to be smart about how we move forward. Show the galaxy that humans can be trusted. That we're not just fighters but also friends. The Admiral looked out at the stars displayed on the view screen. We're going to be navigating unknown territory. First contact with dozens of new species. Complex political situations. Economic negotiations. It's going to be challenging. Humans are good at challenges, Jake said with a slight smile. We've had millions of years of practice. Patterson actually laughed at that. True enough. All right, Commander. Get some rest. You've earned it. Tomorrow we start planning for peace. That's going to be just as hard as planning for war was. Probably harder, Jake admitted, but worth it. He left the bridge and headed to his quarters. The ship was quiet now, most of the crew either sleeping or off duty. Jake thought about Zekthar, probably in his own quarters trying to sleep without nightmares. He thought about all the human soldiers who had fought and died to win this war. He thought about the future and what humanity's role in the galaxy would be. They had proven they could fight. Now they would prove they could do so much more. The next